Alright, today we're going to talk about race ski mounting. Many of the race skis today do come with a plate pre-mounted, however a number of them still come without a plate mounted on them. Therefore, we do have to mount the plate prior to mounting the binding. Mounting of the plate is important to make sure that it is mounted fore and aft the same on both skis. So normally we typically take the tape measure and we do a measurement on our skis to make sure that the plate is going on in the same spot. I've already done the first ski here. I'm going to do the other one here to give you the example. The jig is already on the ski. We just have to select the holes that we are using for this particular ski and basically drill the holes that are appropriate to mount the plate down on the ski. Now that we have all the holes drilled in this, we'll take the jig off the ski. Typically knock all the filings out of the ski to make sure that nothing is left behind. And then we take a tap, and we tap all the holes to make sure that most of these skis have a metal top plate. The threads are started for us to help us out getting the screws put in place. Alright, now that we have tapped all the holes in the ski, flipped it over, knocked all the filings out, the ski's back over, ready to put glue in all the holes, and then start to install the hardware. So we just put a little dab of glue in each hole. We're not trying to fill the hole. We just want the glue acts as a lubricant for putting the screw in and then seals it in place. We then have to mount a specific amount of screws in different places. Now that we are installing these screws, the head plate / fisher plate mount pretty much the same way for us. And there's a lot of hardware involved in all of these. There's 20 bolts just to hold the plate on the ski alone, so it's not like it's a quick, easy job by any means. As you can see, many times these little washers want to wiggle around now, so it take a little extra finesse to get them in place properly. That's the first step of getting the plate mounted to the ski. The next step involved now is finally putting the holes into the plate for the binding. The jig we preset to a dimension that is dependent on the skier's boot sole length. This one happens to be for 300 millimeters. So next we basically just line the jig up. I always like using a metal straight edge to make sure that I'm actually over the center mark of the ski. And then of course I measure so I know how far the jig is for when I move it over to the other ski. So then again, we just have to drill the proper holes. Move the jig over. Measure. And drill our set of holes again. Alright, now that we've taken the jig off, knocked the pieces out, we will still tap the plastic. I don't tap it quite as far as I would normal ski. To get ready to put the binding on in the proper spot. again we knock the pieces out. Alright, now we're going to talk about mounting the binding. One of the other things that is involved with race binding typically is lift. Lift is an extra amount of shim that we place under the binding to help increase leverage on the ski, to allow a skier to be able to get the ski over further up on edge and to allow the ski to initiate easier. Most of the time we do a difference of 2 millimeters between the toe and the heel. What that does is it changes the ramp angle slightly, allowing you to have the quote gas pedal, as they like to call it, to allow you to apply extra pressure towards the tip of the ski. The big thing with doing lift is the fact that all the bolts that come in the binding have to be changed to a specific length depending on the amount of lift that is used. When we do lift a ski, we try to achieve the maximum of 50 millimeters of height, which is the total thickness of the ski and binding put together. We have a gauge here, which we use, which determines how close we can get. This one, we're within a couple of millimeters of achieving 50, which is what we like to see. On the heel, when I tighten this down, this thing will just about fit, thereby knowing that we are up as high as we can go. Alright, glue is not completely necessary here. I still like using a little bit of it to help lock the screw, so to say, and again it helps that little bit of lubrication of when the screw is being threaded into the hole. With this particular binding, I have to start with the heel because the toe has to lock onto this connector plate prior to me being able to put the toe screws in. Here I'm just using a screw gun to send the screws down pretty far, but not tighten them up quite all the way. The toe now, I have to line up to the right distance for the boot sole length. This screw we never put in with a screw gun because your chances of stripping a center screw with a screw gun are very high compared to a normal side screw. Then line the toe up. Shoot the toe down. Then go back through and make sure all screws are properly tightened by hand. That's the binding installed on the ski.
Okay.
And here the binding is on the ski. Again, we have our 50 millimeter tool to make sure this is right. As you can see, this just fits on there, proving that we were at the maximum allowable height that you are allowed to have. The toe, we do have some room in still. Okay, now the binding is fully set on the ski. We know the height is legal. We now take our boot, we put it in the binding. We're going to adjust forward pressure, snapping the boot in. On this particular binding, we're looking for a screw that's flush, like that one is. We will then set the din to what the racer needs. This particular person is starting out at 10 for the season. And then we go on to testing. Alright, now we have the ski in the testing device. We line it up. There are marks on the back here to make sure that we line the boot and everything up in the proper position so the machine does measure the proper torque. I've already set the panel to the information that's necessary to test the ski and adjusted the height of the arms and length of the arms to again work properly with the particular boot size and din that we are dealing with this skier. So first off, we'll try testing the toe. That number was very good, within the range that's necessary. Here we are testing the toe in the other direction. Again, a very accurate release. And now we test forward on the ski. And again, testing well within the ranges necessary to pass.